Hey, welcome to week 13, the beginning of part 6 of our textbook and 20th century modernism. We're going to change gears here. Music is changing, composers are changing. They're getting this modernistic attitude, and it's all began before World War One, a little before. And during the transition between World War One and World War Two, and then during all that time, the composers were starting to change their way of writing music, and the history affected their writing and what they were doing. They wanted freedom. They wanted change. They wanted everything different. You had the beginning of vaudeville. You had Broadway theaters. You had Tin Pan Alley, which is referring to the streets of Manhattan. You had the growth of the radio. You had Prohibition. You had flappers and jazz and all kinds of music coming during this time. We had many, many American composers. They were awesome when you had George Cohan, Irving Berlin, George Gershwin, just to name a few. But a lot of this music was based on three things. First, and you can read about it on page 298 of your text, we had meter. I have put a video under this week's assignment giving you some examples on how to feel or understand the different types of meter. You got duple, triple, and quadruple. Those are your basic meters. Well, these composers changed that up. They had changing meters, polyrhythms, all kinds of different meters and rhythms, and some without any rhythms. They just felt the music. So I've given you also a YouTube video on the polyrhythms so that you can practice it and try to understand that. Melody. Melody, you're accustomed to your normal sounds, your triads in the melodies. 1, 3, and 5. 1, 3, 5. That's a chord. That's a triad. 3 notes. Now composers are adding on to the triads and making them bigger. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, all the way up to 11. The leaps in the melodies are huge, and the distance in the intervals is the distance between 2 notes, is really close and dissonant, and sometimes it's hard to listen to. They also do a lot of speaking melodies, and then you have Arnold Schoenberg, who did atonality, or serialism, or the 12-tone row. And he uses 12 notes and writes his composition based on those 12 notes. Then you have the orchestras. We've talked about that throughout the history of this class. Every era that rolls around, the orchestra changes. Now the orchestra's getting smaller, and they're dwelling more on the percussion because of the rhythm. And the rhythm is really complex. And the composers are, even some of them are developing their own sounds and using their own rhythm. So it's interesting. But then you've got, also from that, you've got the development of some really good stuff like jazz, ragtime. You've also got other orchestra works as well as the jazz works. You've got the religious implementation going on during this time. All kinds of different views on music and what music should be. I think if you read the chapter and listen to the music, you will really enjoy it. It's an interesting part of our history. It's an interesting music to listen to. Enjoy.